Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. मुझे आज जो टॉपिक जो दिए है इंगेजिंग कंटेम्प्रेरी इस्लामिक थॉट, उसके डिटेल्स मुझे मिले थे पहले, तो उसमें जो अहम चीज़ वो मुझे लगे कि आई एम गोइंग टू बी डिस्कसिंग स्कॉलर्स जो 20th सेंचुरी पीरियड में नॉलेज के बारे में लिखा है, डिस्कस किया है. सो इसमें कई नाम्स है, पर्टिकुलरली सैयद मोहम्मद नकीम अल-अत्तास जो एक महीने पहले इंतकाल हुए थे. उसके अलावा इस्माइल रजी अल-फारूकी, सैयद हुसैन नसर और बाकी कई नाम है. लेकिन इसमें मुझे लगे कि ये दो स्ट्रीम्स है इसमें. पहला स्ट्रीम है ट्रेडिशनलिज्म और दूसरा स्ट्रीम इस्लामाइजेशन और इस्लामाइजेशन ऑफ नॉलेज. इसके तरीके से दो स्ट्रीम्स या ट्रेडिशंस मिलेंगे हमें. तो आई विल ट्राई टू टॉक ऑन दीज टू स्ट्रीम्स फर्स्ट. आप लोग को इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे इंशाल्लाह ये दोनों तरीके, और उसके बाद उसको डीपर कॉन्टेक्स्ट और हिस्ट्री के बारे में बात करेंगे इंशाल्लाह. तो पहले ये डिस्टिंक्शन जो है आई विल ट्राई टू एक्सप्लेन इट वेरी ब्रीफली. ये 20th सेंचुरी इस्लामिक इंगेजमेंट, स्कॉलरली इंगेजमेंट में एक रास्ते थे कि द फोकस ऑफ दीज पीपल वर ऑन मॉडर्निटी. क्या है मॉडर्निटी, इसमें क्या असर पड़ रहे हैं, व्हाट आर द इफेक्ट्स ऑफ मॉडर्निटी, व्हाट आर द प्रॉब्लम्स ऑफ मॉडर्निटी, ये थे फोकस. तो ऐसे फोकस से दीज पीपल, पर्टिकुलरली रेने गुएनॉन, सैयद हुसैन नसर और कंटेम्प्रेरी पीरियड में वाइल हल्लाग, these three thinkers and many others in their line, they have emphasized the problems of modernity, and the solution they give is to return to tradition. इसीलिए उन लोग को ट्रेडिशनिस्ट्स कहते हैं. सो ये ट्रेडिशंस इस्लाम हो सकते हैं, हिंदुइज़्म हो सकते हैं, बुद्धिज़्म हो सकते हैं, एनी काइंड ऑफ ट्रेडिशन, चाइनीज़ ट्रेडिशंस, जापानीज़ ट्रेडिशंस, वो सब होते हैं. लेकिन they developed this thought along these lines to a conclusion that all these pre-modern traditions have an underlying spiritual commonality, or this was most developed by the French thinker who later became a Muslim, René Guénon, who later took up the name Abdul Wahid Yahya. अब्दुल वाहिद याहिया स्लैश रेने गुएनॉन हिंदुइज़्म के बारे में बहुत स्टडी किए थे. उसके बाद और रिलीजन्स के बारे में बहुत पढ़ाई की है, और ही इवेंचुअली एक्सेप्टेड इस्लाम. ही मूव टू इजिप्ट एंड लिव्ड हिज लाइफ एज अ प्रैक्टिसिंग मुस्लिम. लेकिन उसके राइटिंग्स में द क्राइसिस ऑफ द मॉडर्न माइंड, सिविलाइजेशनल क्राइसिस, वो सब थे एम्फसिस. एंड his argument was that western modernity और उनकी फ़लसफ़ा, उनकी thought processes was corrupting the human mind, and particularly by taking away the spiritual base of humans. And the only solution for this is to return to tradition in its many forms. And here René Guénon gave his ideas that all these different traditions that were there before modernity, they were all linked spiritually. तो इस्लाम में, हिंदुइज़्म में, बुद्धिज़्म में, कंफ्यूशियनिज्म में, they all had an underlying spiritual truth. And even though he was a Muslim, he said that at the spiritual level there are commonalities that they can all come together. This was later developed by Waseem Naser, who's still alive, who was an Iranian thinker who moved to the US for his studies and then later on developed the ideas of traditionalism. Waseem Naser also agrees with this idea that all these pre-modern traditions have an underlying truth. Although Waseem Naser would emphasize that nonetheless there is some aspects of Islam that makes it more complete. But he will still admit to the fact that when you look at the deeper spiritual aspects of different religions, there is a unifying truth in all these. This was what Waseem Naser took up. Or a different kind of stream was taken up by 𝗜ጵ𝗱𝗶𝗶. 𝗜ጵ𝗱𝗶𝗶 was born into a Christian family, Palestinian Christian family. He went to the US to study Islamic law. और उसके काफ़ी किताबें Islamic law के बारे में थे. लेकिन he was eventually come to his later writings to talk about traditions. And he also has a recent book called Reimagining Orientalism, जिसमें वो argue करते हैं कि a different type of Orientalism needs to be brought back, where we study Eastern traditions as being radically different from modernity. Although 𝗜ጵ𝗱𝗶𝗶 does not emphasize the spiritual aspects, he does not go deep into Sufism or Taoism, Buddhism, he nevertheless concedes that these spiritual aspects give the right way of molding humans. And ये जो चीज़ है is missing in Western modernity, and therefore Western modernity should study Oriental traditions as being radically different from themselves. ये है 𝗜ጵ𝗱𝗶𝗶 की theory. So this is one way जो a particular kind of Muslims and other people sympathetic to Islam have looked at modernity. The second stream, जो मैं कह रहे थे, Islamization of knowledge, is represented mainly by two figures, Ismail Raji al-Faruqi or Sayyid Naqib-ul-Attas. ये दोनों thinkers में Islam is the truth. So for them it is not an issue of whether modernity is right or not. Irrespective of how they criticize modernity, the aim is to come back to Islam and to develop Islam, to flourish the knowledge traditions in Islam. And इसमें they had their slight disagreements. How should we go about Islamization of knowledge? So Ismail Raji al-Faruqi was of the opinion that we have to integrate different types of knowledge in order to bring in an ethical tradition inherent in Islam. So Ismail Raji al-Faruqi was of the opinion that if we want to Islamize, for example, psychology, if we want to Islamize economics, if we want to Islamize any other social field, we should first study that field deeply and then integrate it with our Islamic traditions. Sayyid Naqib-ul-Attas was of the different opinion. Sayyid Naqib-ul-Attas said that we have to be first rooted in Islam, then approach the other traditions. So these two thinkers were emphasizing that knowledge is something that we have to engage with. लेकिन ये दोनों thinkers had slight different agendas of how to go about it. Naqib-ul-Attas of the opinion that we have to be first rooted in Islamic intellectual traditions and from them try to develop it. Whereas Ismail Raji al-Faruqi was of the opinion that as Muslims we should go deep into any field, whether it be psychology, sociology. We don't have to throw away the whole field. We have to first study that field very deeply And when you study a field very deeply, you will see the gaps, you will see the fault lines, the mistakes, and from that you will try to integrate it to Islamic traditions. So these were the two different approaches of scholars who were engaging in 20th century. So ऐसे लोग को knowledge थे, that was the priority. इन लोग को दावा या political process ऐसे processes secondary थे. For them, the main issue for Muslims in 20th century was knowledge. So the traditionalists were saying there is a crisis of knowledge for which we have to return to pre-modern traditions. Or Islamization of knowledge was much more forward-looking. We are now in a point of crisis, and how do we move forward as Muslims? So for the earlier people, it was going back in a particular way. For these people, it was how do we develop new knowledges? So this is basic, very basic, simple ways. They are much more sophisticated thinkers. So I urge you all to read their works, because as members of SIO, this is something that's very crucial for our movements. But like I said, for these people, other aspects of Iqamatuddin were not the primary focus. Dawah was not the primary focus. Political processes were not the primary focus. They were all saying that we should start by engaging with modern knowledge. Now, when you look at it in this way, what you see is that both these movements had a particular conception of politics that was distinct from most of the other Muslim movements and organizations. So, so for the Islamization of knowledge people, they were not saying that politics is wrong or corrupting. No, they were saying that as scholars, we are stepping back from politics. We will not engage politically because we are focusing on intellectual traditions, knowledge traditions. Whereas the traditionists, they were saying that politics itself is a corrupting activity. We should come back to more spiritual engagements which will allow us to overcome the crisis of modernity. So this is also something that we as members of Islamic movement have to be aware of. Now all these thinkers, Sayyid Naser, Wael Hallag, Sayyid Muhammad Naqib al-Attas, Ismail Raji al-Faruqi, they were all linked to Western academia. ये सारे लोग in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, they were in the University of McGill in Canada, जहाँ ऐसे agenda थी कि the Islamic Studies department in the University of McGill was set up to promote Islam as an opposition to communism that was growing in Asian countries. So US, UK, they were funding Islamic Studies department as a means of suppressing the influence of communism in Muslim countries. So these people were sent to these institutes or were funded by organizations as a means of reviving the idea of civilization. And you can see the influence they have among each other. So Sayyid Hussain Nasr was reading the works of the others in these groups. The others came to know about these thinkers in these circles. Or iske alawa there were many other thinkers as well. Toshihiko Izutsu, जो एक Japanese Islamic studies scholar थे, he was also part of the Islamic studies department in McGill. तो ये context है जिसमें ऐसे ideas were floating about. So when you look at it in this sense, what you see is that particularly for Muslims in India or Indian subcontinent, there was something radically new, but also something that was already there in Islamic movements across South Asia. So the same you can see almost 100 years before, जब 1857 revolt हुई थी. After the failure of the revolt, you see movements among Muslims in India who were saying the same thing. For the time being, the scholarly community have to step away from politics and engage in intellectual work. This time you see the establishment of the Yuband, you see the establishment of Aligarh, you see, and then subsequently the establishment of Nadwa. Again, you see here scholars who, due to political failure, came to the conclusion that their scholarly work had to step away from politics for the time being, so that they can engage in knowledge as a means of reviving Muslims. This same idea you can see in the 20th century among these different schools. But the Indian Muslim scholarly tradition went through this process 100 years before in the same route. So Dayuband, Nadwa, Aligarh, they are very famous. लेकिन इसके अलावा और थे, for example Shibli Nomani, Darul Musannifin, they were also engaged in particularly in intellectual activities. और इसके अलावा Usmania University is also very important to remember here, क्योंकि Usmania University was also different in the sense कि ये एक modern university की aim थे, लेकिन they tried to develop the Urdu language as a scientific language. So you see Manazir Hasan Gilani, Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi, and many other figures engaged in the production of textbooks in Urdu language, for which they were translating classical Arabic works, modern English, German, French books, and translating them into Urdu. And the intention there was to translate these into Urdu, but also to develop the Urdu language as a scientific language. So Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi was engaged for 3 or 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, translating philosophical works from English to Urdu and from Arabic to Urdu. So he was also tasked with translating the works of Mullah Sadra into Urdu. He was also engaged in translating English philosophy into Urdu. So these things also happened at the same, almost a century before in the Indian context. But then post-partition, post the formation of India, Pakistan, and the movement of Indians between Pakistan and Bangladesh, these created ruptures in these processes, which was then later taken up by other thinkers that I have just mentioned, Sayyid Naqib al-Attas, Waseem Naser, and then also someone else you have to mention here is the Pakistani thinker Fazlur Rahman, who was also, like I mentioned, in McGill at that time. Now, one very interesting thing is that the culmination of the Islamization of knowledge happened with the formation of International Islamic University in Malaysia and in Pakistan. Now, the very interesting thing here is that when this university was formed, they needed scholars who were fluent in English language, and they needed scholars who had experience in creating textbooks, in creating syllabus, in creating modules. So the interesting thing here is that they all ended up coming to Aligarh, coming to Dayuband, Nadwa, and coming to Indian scholars. So when you look at the groundwork of the International Islamic University in Malaysia, you see that most of them were scholars of Indian background, because they have a tradition of already engaging in these processes. But unfortunately, what's happening is that we are almost totally unaware of that tradition, which already happened here, which in fact Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi himself was a part of. So as cadres of SIO, this is something that should come back into our agenda, but then we should also be aware of the context. Like I said, for these scholarly engagement, they were saying that they will not engage in politics strategically. Why? Because they felt that their intellectual efforts should be directed in engaging with knowledge, in engaging with how knowledge should be transmitted, how knowledge should be developed. And in these ideas, people like Najatullah Siddiqui Sahab, Abdul Haq Ansari Sahab were very, very important. How do you produce new knowledge? Essay questions were something that was not asked before, but they were the people who were there in the background. In the front, you see people like Ismail Raja Al-Faruqi, you see Sayyid Naqib al-Atas. But in the background, there were people from the Indian subcontinent who were engaged in these works. I'm not going to talk any more further. We can, inshallah, discuss this deeply. But I want to end with one final point. जब उस्मानिया यूनिवर्सिटी में उर्दू लैंग्वेज के बारे में बहुत इंटेलेक्चुअल एंगेजमेंट्स चल रहे थे, like I said, कि how do we make Urdu a scientific language? The same thing is happening now with English language in the different sense. How do we make English language sensitive to Islamic ideas? How can we make the English language better express knowledge traditions in Islam? So this is something that is happening now. And me myself now, I am talking in English language. Most of our educational backgrounds are in the medium of English language. So this is something also that we have to grapple with. How do we develop the English language? How can we contribute to the English language such that it is useful for Muslims, but also for propagating the knowledge in Islam to the broader general audience? Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
तो अभी डिस्कशन का वक्त है, तो आप में से जो इसमें पार्ट लेना चाहते हैं वो हैंड रेज करें, इंशाल्लाह माइक उनको मिल जाएगा।
ये सवाल ये है कि इस्लामाइजेशन ऑफ नॉलेज और स्कॉलर का जो है मतलब पूरा सिस्टम है, ये मतलब ये है कि पहले ये चीज़ नहीं उठती थी, ये सवाल नहीं उठता, अब क्यों ये सवाल खड़ा होता है? मतलब हर चीज़ को आप मतलब ये है कि इस्लाम से जोड़कर क्यों पेश करना चाहते हैं? वो चीज़ है मतलब इस्लाम चीज़ पेश करता है, लेकिन उसको जोड़ना क्यों ज़रूरी है?
आप पूछ रहे कि ये सवाल अभी क्यों आ रहे? हाँ, ये भी एक हमारा कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखना है कि वी आर इन अ कॉन्टेक्स्ट वेयर नॉलेज इज मोस्टली वेस्टर्न. Muslims are made to engage with knowledge that they might consider unethical, they might consider not aligning with their religious convictions. ऐसे चीज़, but this is again, even though the ये term new है, लेकिन the same thing happened before. अब्बासी खिलाफे की ज़माने में translation movement थे, जब Greek knowledge, Indian knowledge, Persian knowledge was being translated into Arabic. The only difference थे कि at that time Muslims were in power, so they had the power to dictate how this knowledge was. So for example, very simple but revealing example, कि जब Greek knowledge translate कर रहे थे अक्सर Christian scholars जे कर रहे थे, ये Greek से Arabic translate कर रहे थे, वो सारे अक्सर लोग Christians थे. तो they had written for Greek gods, I think औलिया, क्योंकि Greek mythology में बहुत सारे gods हैं ना तो औलिया लिखे थे. और हमें manuscripts देख सकते हैं कि ये सारे औलिया कट करके मलाइका लिखा है. Very simple example. Muslims have cut it and said malaika. But the difference there is Muslims were in power. So they had a way of, of engaging where the power was with them, they could dictate. आज का ज़माने में it's not so. Particularly we as Muslims are engaged primarily in Western modes of education, where we might not have the privilege. And when we don't have that privilege, people who are जो are not intellectually inclined, उन लोग they might take it as knowledge. So this is why these thinkers were emphasizing that knowledge is something today where we have to engage it in a particular way, क्योंकि we are in a current state where knowledge is coming from sources outside of Islam.
Assalamu alaikum. Rather than a question, I want a little more deliberation, a little more better understanding on the concept that you mentioned. You tried to convey the two methodologies, two approaches to knowledge. First, you become Islamically sound and then try to explore the worldly knowledge, one perspective of a scholar. And the second perspective was first you explore the worldly knowledge and then you become Islamically sound. This is the conversation we regularly have. And SIO tries to place itself in that domain which balances both worldly knowledge and Islamic knowledge. But somewhere or the other, either of the thing is missed. Either it's Islamic, you become a Hafiz, you have everything, or you are an extremely modernistic scholar with no Islamic knowledge. I wanted a little more deliberation. I'm not asking what is right, what is wrong.
Yes.
A little bit of engagement would give a better idea.
It's a very good question. And like you said, again, this is my opinion. This should not be approached as which is right, which is wrong. When you look at, just to go back again, it is said 𝗜παιጵ𝗱𝗏 was saying that we have to be first rooted in Islamic traditions. And then 𝗜ጵ𝗱𝗏𝗶𝗏 was saying that, or he is of the opinion that being rooted in one tradition might end up, you might not have time to engage with knowledge that is out there today. So when you look at their writings, they're not saying this or this. They're still saying you have to engage with Western knowledge. 𝗜παιՊ𝗱𝗏𝗶 is saying you have to engage. But you have to make sure that you are rooted, or else you will get lost in that knowledge. Whereas 𝗜ጵ𝗱𝗏𝗶𝗏 is saying, okay, we have to be rooted. No one is denying that. But then, what I like about 𝗜ጵ𝗱𝗏𝗶𝗏, he's saying that sometimes we learn from mistakes. So only when we make mistakes do we realize that, okay, this should have been the path. So 𝗜ጵ𝗱𝗏𝗶𝗏 is saying that, you engage bravely with Western traditions. You might make mistakes on the way, but then the next generation will learn from that mistake. So he has that mindset. So this is again different personalities. 𝗜άρχ𝗶𝗶 is someone who is very concerned about authenticity. 𝗜ጵ𝗚𝗓𝗓𝗏 is someone who is very dynamic. We keep doing something. So in 𝗜άρχ𝗶𝗶 you will not see any steps. What should be done now? What should be done after that? There's nothing of that. He is very individual focused. The individual should go deeper and deeper and deeper into knowledge. And then he can engage with different other knowledges confidently. Whereas 𝗜ጵ𝗚𝗓𝗓𝗏 is very social oriented. Okay, we have 6 or 7 people come together, all psychologists. They discuss among themselves. They create textbooks. They create new knowledge from that process. That is his approach. So here again, it is not this or this, different mizaj, like how we say in Urdu. So we need both, but then we also need both of them to come together. So the best example there is again Najatullah Siddiqui Sahab, who if you ask anyone outside economics, they will say Najatullah Siddiqui Sahab did a lot for Islamic economics. But if you ask someone within Islamic economics, they will say no, Najatullah Sahab is the biggest critic of Islamic economics. So again, a figure like Najatullah Sahab is someone who tried to bring these two together. You should not get carried away by doing what you think is right. You should also be willing to admit what is wrong and then learn from that.
Assalamu alaikum. I have 2 questions. First question is this: how we can apply Islamic techniques or thoughts in daily life while living in a modern society? And second is that how we can address to modern challenges like globalizations, social changes, etc.
ये बहुत बड़ा question है. I don't think I'm the right person to ask. Inshallah, we have other speakers who come after this session, inshallah, who I think they can discuss this further. But again, coming back to this, मैं जो बात किए थे आज, this is something that is engaging with knowledge. So they are not, the first concern of these people is not how we act, but they say we should start thinking properly first, and then the correct actions will come. That is one approach. People who are engaged in knowledge have this tendency. Whereas people who are into dawah, people who are into social work, they might not have this approach. They will be more concerned about what should be done now, what should I do. लेकिन ये scholarly tendency जो है, उन लोगों को ऐसे approach होते हैं कि how should I think? Thinking process है उन लोगों का. So I think that question is for the other type of people.
You described 2 schools. Then there is a Ziauddin Sardar who critiques basically on both of them. And he somewhere comes from that rationalist school of Mu'tazilites and that legacy. So how do you place Zia in this spectrum? Or
well, Ziauddin Sardar is a critique. That's how I place him. So I respect him as a critic. So sometimes in intellectual work you need critics. But my issue with Sardar is that he hasn't adequately engaged with knowledge production in any sense. So I wouldn't include him among these people. These people are trying to build something. I didn't see that in his writings. He is a critic who's sometimes useful, but sometimes not so useful. So if no more questions, Jazakallah khair. So इसके मकसद ये थे कि inshallah from this you will at least be motivated to read them. So I was told to introduce these scholars, not to go deep. So inshallah I hope from this talk that if you feel the need to at least engage with scholarly people and how that can be brought into or incorporated into our activities of the Islamic movement. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.